السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قالوا يا موسى إنا لن ندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها فاذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنا هاهنا قائدون. Respected brothers and elders, mothers and sisters in Islam, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us in the company of the righteous in this world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise us amongst the righteous on the day of Qiyamah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill our lives with mercy and rahmah, as all of us are in the need of the rahmah and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ayat that I recited in front of you is the 24th ayat of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Surah Al-Ma'idah is the 5th surah in the order of recitation, and this is part of the 6th juz, the 6th sipara, and verse number 24. This particular ayat of the Quran is a conversation that took place between the people of Bani Israel, the nation of Musa alayhi salam, and Musa alayhi salam. And I'm trying my best to keep an ayat that relates to us from the seerah of Rasulullah during the course of Ramadan, so that we can understand a bit more about seerah, but to learn through different segments from the Quran itself. So, as we know from just a little background from this ayat of the Quran, what we know from these particular ayats of the Quran is that the people of Bani Israel, and who are the people of Bani Israel? These are the 12 tribes from amongst the people, or the awlad, from the children of the prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent. And the word Bani means the children, Israel means the the abd, or the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like we say the word Abdullah, the word Israel in Hebrew, or the language itself, referred to as those who were the children of, they came from the progeny, or the servant of the Almighty. So in this very particular verse itself, as they came from the lineage of Ishaq alayhi salam, they were the people from Musa alayhi salam, the 12 tribes that they were made to leave, or they were made to become servant to Fir'aun, and they left the area and they passed through the entire sea, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala split open ways for them. So once the people of Bani Israel had crossed the path, and they crossed over, and Allah protected them from the difficulty and hardships of Pharaoh, Musa alayhi salam ordained, or told his nation, that this is not our maqam, where we landed up after leaving Egypt and Pharaoh. This is not the place that we are supposed to be, the area of Sinai. For those who have been to Egypt, if you cross Egypt towards the peninsula, towards the east, on the south side you will find the area of Arabia. On the north side you will find the place of Bayt al-Muqaddas, which is the current area of Palestine now. So there is a whole desert. The area is known as the desert of Sinai. So they ended up there, and Musa alayhi salam said, this is not the maqam, this is not the place for us. The area that Allah has given us and provided for us, inna fiha. So this is, Ya qawm idkhulul ard al-muqaddasa allati kataba Allahu lakum. Few ayats before, it says Allah has given you a land much more sacred and much more beautiful and greater than this. So the nation of Musa alayhi salam said, no, that's not gonna happen. We're not going to be able to enter with you. Qalu ya Musa, the nation of Bani Israel who were saved from the difficulties and the tortures and the hardships of Fir'aun, now they're all free. And now Musa alayhi salam wants to take him to the next level of excellence and heights. And now they are saying, قَالُوا يَا Musa, they're saying, oh Musa, إِنَّا لَن نَدْخُلَهَا, we're not going to enter this place that you're talking about forever. And مَا دَامُوا فِيهَا, until there is a nation that is within this place that they don't move out. فَاذْهَبْ أَنْتَ وَرَبُّكَ. And this is the point that I really want to focus from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. They said, you and your Rabb go and take care of it. We're not going to go with you. That's what the Bani Israel said. That's why the Quran reminds us of the story of Musa alayhi salam in 28 out of the 30 juz of the Quran. 28 out of the 30 siparas of the Quran remind us continuously of the story of Musa alayhi salam. So the people of Bani Israel says, فَاذْهَبْ أَنْتَ وَرَبُّكَ. Musa, you go and your Rabb go, فَقَاتِلَا, and you go both fight. Inna hahuna qa'idun, and we are going to be standing here in this location. We're not going to move from this place. And then the ayats further mention that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abandoned them in the land for the next 40 years for leaving the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Few things to remember from this ayat and connecting it to the seerah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was in Makkah al-Mukarramah, he had never ever thought of leaving Makkah in his life. Never. But it was an incident that occurred during the journey of Ta'if that made him think for the first time to ever leave Makkah. It was a land that he loved dearly. Even on the day of the hijrah that he was making towards Medina, he left the area. For those who are familiar with Makkah, I don't know how to explain the map, but if you remember or visualize the place of Safa and Marwa, Safa and Marwa, behind Safa and Marwa, there is a place which is known as the maqam of the birth of Rasulullah. Around that area was the house of the Prophet. Near to the masjid was the house where Rasulullah and Khadija radiallahu anha lived. And all of his 6 children were born in that house. Jibreel alayhi salam came and visited that maqam 700 times with wahi. Right? That's the maqam, which is not marked at this moment, but it's right behind Safa and Marwa. So he left from there and he walked. The current day, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, there are towers called Makkah towers. They go sideways like this, right in the middle, in front of Babi Fahad. Right behind it is a small musalla, still present with a palm tree. It is known as Masjid Abi Bakr. It's actually covered in the back of the hotel. But that was the house of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu. So he left from Safa and Marwa area, he came towards the area where is the current Babi Fahad. He picked up Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, and they walked back towards the area of Misfala, for those who know Makkah. And that is known as the road of Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ started. So the Nabi of Allah ﷺ, when he was leaving, he looked back at Makkah from the mountain. And he said, oh Makkah, I love you. If it wasn't for the people of Quraysh, I would have never left you. This is what Rasulullah said. He said, Makkah, I love you. It's my land. I'm born here. I'm raised. My father and forefathers and grandfathers were the people of Makkah. Oh, Makkah, I love you. I wouldn't leave if these people were not to tell me to leave. So Rasulullah ﷺ, prior to making this hijrat, when he was deciding to go towards Medina, the Nabi of Allah ﷺ never thought of leaving Makkah except after the incident of Ta'if. We're all well aware of Ta'if. The Nabi of Allah ﷺ went to the local area, no support. His wife passed away, his uncle passed away, the internal, external support is gone. And the Nabi of Allah ﷺ started to speak to the people during the Hajj. Makkah was the Hajj hub of people from all sides. So he spoke to the larger tribes during Hajj. And he says, Allah has sent me as a Nabi. Take me. Allah will give you the khair of dunya and akhirah, this world and akhirah. Everyone rejected the Prophet. There was a group of 6 men. They were sitting in one place. The Nabi of Allah didn't lose hope. So people used to sit in groups from the areas that they come in. Just like Hajj now, they have the American Hajj and this Hajj and this. At that time, people used to sit in groups as well. So Rasulullah saw 6 people sitting down. They were not massive groups. They were not large, powerful men. They were not people known to the people with power. There were 6 people sitting down. The Nabi of Allah was with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. He asked the men, and he said, where are you from? They said, we are from the place of Yathrib. And the Nabi of Allah said, what is Yathrib? So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was known as a man of lineage. Everyone has traits, everyone has skills. So one of the traits that Allah had given Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was that he was a man of lineage. He knew lineages back to like so many, lineages back. So he was known for the man of lineage. You talk about a name, he'll tell you the whole thing about their family, their forefathers and their forefathers. So he was a person that Allah had gifted with the knowledge of lineage. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, the people of Yathrib are those, so, and even your forefathers came from there. So the whole detail came alive in front of Rasulullah, how his mother and him traveled to Yathrib. So the Nabi of Allah gave them da'wat and told them to accept. These are the Ansar. These are the 6 Ansar of Medina who accepted. So they said, we accept Islam and we will take you. So now Rasulullah said, come back next year with more people. More people came next year. And the reason why I'm telling you is I want to connect this with this particular ayat. More Sahaba came the next year. And now when they accepted Islam, they invited Rasulullah to come towards Yathrib, which is known as Madinatul Munawwarah. When the Nabi of Allah was thinking about moving, Hamza radiallahu anhu, and his uncle, he said that you're willing to take my nephew with you, but if you take this man with you to your city of Yathrib, Medina, then the peace and tranquility of your city will be gone, because the Quraysh will not leave him alone. And your wealth and all the things that you have amassed and gathered may not be with you anymore. Your finances, your safety and your security and everything will be harmed and affected by the presence of this man, because it's not easy taking him, because there's a whole nation going against him. So the Sahaba stood up, the Ansar stood up, Allah. And they said, if this man tells us to jump in the fires, we will jump in the fires. If he tells us to jump in the oceans, we will jump in the oceans. But we will not let a finger touch Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These were the Ansar, right? And that's why when the Nabi of Allah sallallahu made hijrah towards Medina, and it was the day of Badr, it was the Ansar who stood up and protected the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was the day of Uhud that the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I just want to conclude this, is a lot in the seerah. There was a day of Uhud where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was initially in the battlefield of Uhud. The Muslims were about to win, and the whole tides turned. And the people began to leave, collected the leftovers of the wealth, and the Nabi of Allah ﷺ got caught between the two folds of the armies of Quraysh. He broke 2 of his molars, his armor was broken, his face began to bleed, he became unconscious, he was thrown inside a ditch. His face was full of blood till the time that blood began to drip. He began to wipe his face. He was taken to a ghar, a little cave on top of mountain of Uhud. And at that time, there was a Sahabi. His name is Sa'ad radiallahu anhu. And wallahi, I was just in Medina a few weeks ago, and I remember that story. All of the life, Sahaba would tell this statement to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they would say, I wish we knew Arabic and understand the depth of it. Sahaba would say, Fidaka abi wa ummi ya Rasulullah. They would say, may my parents be sacrificed on you, ya Rasulullah. Right? Whenever they would say something, because of the love of Rasulullah, Fidaka abi wa ummi. May my father and mother be sacrificed upon you, ya Rasulullah. This is just an expression of love. Not that they're doing it, but it's an expression of love. On that day of Uhud, Rasulullah was in the cave of Uhud. He grabbed the hand of Sa'ad radiallahu anhu, an Ansari from Medina, and he says, O Sa'ad, fidaka abi wa ummi. He said, may my parents be sacrificed on you, Sa'ad. Throw the arrows and protect the believers. Because he was throwing and protecting. Abu Dujana radiallahu anhu, he stood as a human shield in front of the Nabi of Allah. To the extent he says, no, I cannot have my back. He turned around and he hugged the Nabi of Allah. And he let all the arrows hit him to protect the life of the Nabi of Allah. And that was the day that the Ansar fulfilled the haqq that they stood for the Nabi of Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the comparison of the people of the past and how they treated their anbiya and how the Sahaba stood for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just a small incident where the people of Bani Israel were asked by their prophet who saved them from the tortures of Fir'aun to enter a land that is much greater and better than what Allah has given. They say, no, you and your Rabb go, and we don't need anything. And subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, O Musa, Allah is with you, and indeed Allah will protect you. But when it came to the Ummah and Rasulullah and Sahaba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never only gave His protection for His Habib, but He gave protection for the Ummah at large. Just a small thing, and I'll finish with this, and forgive me, it's a bit longer. So, Bani Israel never entered Baytul Muqaddas with Musa alayhi salam. They never entered. They started wandering the earth. How did Bani Israel enter Baytul Muqaddas, the promised land? They entered through the nephew of Musa alayhi salam, whose name was Yusha bin Nun. And I'll tell you a quick story and I'll be done. Yusha alayhi salam, if you remember the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khizr, when he went on a boat to look for a person, Allah mentions that in Surah Al-Kahf, and the fish jumped inside the water. That young person who was traveling with Musa alayhi salam was his nephew, known as Yusha bin Nun. After Musa alayhi salam passed away, Yusha became the prophet of Allah. He became the Nabi of Bani Israel. And he is the one who led Bani Israel inside Ardul Muqaddasa, Baytul Muqaddas. When he was reaching the doors of Baytul Muqaddas, Maghrib time was about to enter. This is my final thing on that. Asr Salah was done, and it was almost the time of Maghrib, meaning Ghurub was about to happen. As soon as he was about to enter, Ghurub was happening, and Yusha bin Nun stood up, and he made dua. This is from the hadith of Rasulullah. Yusha bin Nun stood up and he said, Ya Allah, if the Ghurub, the sunset happens, we won't be able to enter the city of Ardul Muqaddasa, Baytul Muqaddas. May Allah open the doors of khair for all of us, and especially our brothers and sisters in Gaza and Palestine. So he said, we won't be able to enter the Ardul Muqaddasa. Oh Allah, please hold the sun to set so that we can enter in light and take over the army, because if we don't, then they will have a whole night to prepare for the next morning to attack us. So Rasulullah said in his hadith, authentic hadith, that the sun has not stopped for anyone except for the Nabi of Allah, Yusha bin Nun, when he made dua for the people of Baytul Muqaddas, for Bani Israel to enter inside the land itself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala held the sun in its place not to set because of the dua of Yusha bin Nun. So a few things to remember in this particular hadith, in this ayat of the Quran, as a reminder to all of us. This is Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 24, juz number 6. As a reminder that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given excellence to the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this ummah that Allah has sent are the ones that are ready to obey the commands of Allah and His Habib Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Sahaba were those men and women that obeyed Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam unconditionally, knowingly and unknowingly, knowing that these are the words of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them the benchmark of Iman till the day of Qiyamah. May Allah give us the love of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba radiallahu anhu ajma'in, and ittiba of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Inshallah.